I guess we can get started here. It's 11 a.m. That voice you're hearing is me. I'm Becky Parker. Sorry you can't see my face right now. I will transition over to our meeting in just a second. I'm the coordinator of the Young Naturalists Club, and this is all about European starlings. So I'm going to turn our screen over in just a second here over to our amazing board member, Maheshi Dharmasiri, who is going to tell us about her really interesting research on these little urban birds. And then we're going to move into some trivia, which should be super fun. So, Maheshi, go ahead, introduce yourself. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Becky. I'm really excited to be here. And I'm just going to share my screen with you.
Great. Is everything clear on your end, Becky? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, looks good to me.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be talking to you about European starlings, and their scientific name is Sturnus vulgaris. So before I get started, I thought I would introduce myself. So as Becky said, my name is Maheshi Dharmasiri, and I'm a graduate student at St. Mary's University. And I study European starling songs, specifically male song, but I will be talking a little bit about that later on in the presentation. And my supervisor is Dr. Colleen Barber. She's a professor at St. Mary's University, and she's been studying European starlings in Halifax since 2007. So I thought a great place to start is the distribution of European starlings. So where are they found? So this map was taken from eBird, where where someone sees a European starling, they're able to mark it on the map, and it's basically citizen science. So all these points are from citizens in the public. They just see a starling and they make a point in where they saw them. So the darker purple is where you see a higher abundance of European starlings, and the lighter purple is where there's lower numbers of starlings. So you can see they're well distributed. They're all across the world, and in some places they're higher in frequency. So all across North America, a small area in South America, and all across Europe. And actually they're native to Europe and Asia. So you can see in Europe there's a high abundance and a high range of them. There's some in Asia, and you can see some in Australia, New Zealand, and in some parts of South Africa too. So they're very common. I thought an interesting fact to share with you is European starlings were actually introduced to North America. And they were introduced by a few individuals who were very passionate about Shakespeare. They thought it was a good idea to release every bird that was mentioned in Shakespeare plays. And so someone released 100 birds in Central Park, New York in early 1890s. And that's the origin of European starlings in North America. So just so you know, they are non-native, but they've been here for a very long time. So European starlings are actually known as urban thrivers. They've well adapted to the cities, and you'll see them all around Halifax. However, their populations are declining. They're declining in their native ranges, so in Europe and Asia, but also in their non-native ranges. So in Canada, for example, their populations have been declining since 1970s. And it's a large decline. It's a 50% decline. And the exact reasons for the declines are not known, but they're most likely associated with human activities. So it's unfortunate to hear that their populations of such a hardy, industrious bird declining. So I thought I would share a little bit about how you can identify European starlings. So there's the breeding adult, and then there's the non-breeding adult. So in general, both of them are a chunky bird, and they are about the size of a blackbird, and they have a long, slender bill and a short tail. But they do differ in several ways, depending on if they're in their breeding cycle or if they're a non-breeding adult. So if you look at the breeding adult, they're darker, they're glossier. So they look like they almost wearing gel or something, like really glossy. And their beak is yellower in color. So it's brighter. And I'll go in a little bit more detail in the next slide about the base beak color, but the base beak color is either blue or pink. And in a non-breeding adult, so this is the individual, if you look outside and you go for a walk, these are the individuals you would see now with this plumage. They have white spots that they've developed for a non-breeding adult, and it's about in fall right up until close to April or a little before. And their beak is darker. So it's not as yellow as you can see. So these are the differences in the breeding versus non-breeding adult. But I thought it would be interesting to share a little bit about how you can identify a male from a female, and these are breeding males and females. So here you can see the female, and when they're breeding, if you look at the base of the beak, it's pinkish in color. And then also if you look at the eye, they have a yellow brownish iris ring. So I hope it's clear, but you can see that there's a ring around their eye. And if you look at the male, the base of the beak is bluish. And then their iris ring is actually brown. So you can't really see the ring. So it's all uniform in color. So these are the two ways that we distinguish whether it's a female or a male. So the base beak color and the presence of an iris ring in a female. So if you're really good with binoculars and you're going out for a walk next time, you can practice looking at the base beak color of a breeding starling and see if you can identify whether it's pink or bluish. It does take a little bit of practice, but you'll be able to tell whether they're a male or a female. So starlings are known as cavity nesters. So they nest in nest boxes, for example, in our field where we've attached nest boxes to trees. They nest in a hole that's available. So if there's a hole in your roof or a building that you're walking in the city, they're likely going to be nesting there. I've even seen them nesting in traffic poles if there's space. And so there's a nestling peeking out of a roof hole. And then they'll also nest in cavities of trees. So if there's holes and there's enough space, they'll take advantage of it. So they're known as cavity nesters. So their nest. So they start to build their nest right before they lay eggs. And the male actually starts to build the nest, and it's a bowl shape. But it's very interesting. They incorporate a wide array of material in their nest. So as you can see in these pictures, they include a lot of different types of feathers. Sometimes we see lots of plastic in them. And I've even pointed at a piece of plastic. I think it's a granola bar wrapper they've integrated into their nest. There's sometimes cigarette butts, wood scrapings, so all sorts of material you would find in the city. But they also incorporate greenery. So this is a very interesting aspect where they include blades of grass, lichen, mosses, flowers, or flower petals into their nest. And there's several reasons that have been put forward by research to why this might be, and research is being conducted on why this is. And some of the reasons are that one being mate attraction. So they found that the more greenery that's incorporated into the nest, the more likely a female will lay eggs in that nest. And a second reason is that these properties in this green material, so the strong aromatic or scents or properties that these green material have, may help deter mites or parasites. So lower these numbers in the nests that might feed on the nestlings or the adults. And it's also been proposed that it could also be that the green material make the nestlings healthier. So these are three ideas that are put forward to why they might be included in these green material in the nests. So I thought that was a neat aspect of their nest building. So breeding, European starlings have two broods. So they can have up to two sets of young in a year. So females start laying eggs in late April, which goes on until May. And then they start their second brood, if they do start their second brood, from June to July. And generally, a clutch size ranges from 3 to 7 eggs. So they can have up to 3, on average, have 3 to 7 eggs. And in this species, there's biparental care. So this means that both the female and the male contribute to keeping the eggs warm, so incubation, and also contribute to feeding the nestlings. And this is a picture of the European starling's eggs. So they are a light bluish color, and the shade of blue can vary from a palish blue to a really nice deep blue color too, but depends on the female. And they had a blue jay feather, which I thought was beautiful, incorporated with the blue eggs in the nest. So as I mentioned, they incubate their eggs. So this is a female European starling incubating her eggs. And you can see on her leg, this is a banded individual. So we band individuals so that we can follow and get long-term data on specific individuals and see how they're doing. So in this case, eggs are incubated for an average of 12 days. And both the male and female incubate the eggs. So this is a nestling that just hatched, and you can see even the nest shell is still stuck on their body a little bit, and their hairs are wet, so they just hatched. And this nestlings usually hatch about 12 days after the second to last egg was laid, so when the penultimate egg was laid. So comparing to the previous picture here, you can see the nestlings are maybe several hours after they hatch. Their hair is all dry and looking great in this. So they're probably a few hours or a day later after they hatched. So I thought I'd share a key form of communication used by nestlings, and it's called begging. So begging is a parent-offspring form of communication, and it's where nestlings beg to show that they need care from their parents. So when they're hungry or when they need care in general. So begging can be displayed both by sound, so acoustics, or visual signals. And it includes vocalizing loudly with wide open mouths, as you can see here. So they're really begging with their beaks right open. And they move their wings up and down. They stretch their necks very out towards the incoming parent. And sometimes they even compete with their nestlings to try and reach to the incoming parent with food. So it's an important form of communication where nestlings can convey to the parents, and the parents can understand if they are hungry or what level of feeding or provisioning they need to provide on the amount of begging done. So moving on to feeding. So European starlings primarily feed on invertebrates, so found on grassy environments and foliage. And so they could be in earthworms, insects, but they're also opportunistic scavengers. So as I mentioned, they're great urban thrivers. So they take advantage of what's found in the city. So we've even seen them feasting on sausages, and I've seen them provision their nestlings with pizza, and even one time poutine that was on the sidewalk. They were taking it to their nest to feed to the nestlings. So they're definitely opportunistic and take advantage of what's around them. So fledging. Fledging is a term used when the nestlings are ready to leave the nest and they've gained flight capability. So nestlings in European starlings, they leave the nest about 20 to 23 days after they have hatched. And even after they have hatched, the adults continue to feed the nestlings for about 12 days. And if you look at this, these are a group of nestlings huddled in their nest. So you can see they're much bigger than the previous pictures you've seen. They've really developed their feathers, and they almost look like little paintbrushes. Like if you look at them closely, at the ends of their feathers look like little paintbrushes. And here is a nestling in a nest box peeking its head out. So usually this means that they're probably close to fledging and they're old, so they're just poking their head out waiting for the parent to come with food. So that's a little bit of general information about European starlings. And as I mentioned, I was going to talk to you a little bit about my research as well. So I study male European starling song. And there's different forms. I thought it would be important to mention that there's, as you know, there's different forms of communication that's used by animals and different species. So in birds, important form of communication is acoustic. So song and different calls. So in avian species or avian birds, song has two functions really. So one being mate selection. So they could be singing to attract the female. And this is seen in European starlings and the sage warbler. But they could also sing to defend territory. So sometimes females would nest in a certain area. So a male would sing to defend territory. And this is seen in the red-winged blackbirds. And song can also provide certain information to the listener. So in the case of European starlings, when they sing in the breeding season, which is primarily addressed to females, the female can listen to the song and gain some information about the male. So depending on the different characteristics of songs, the female may maybe be able to get an idea of the nutrition status of the male, the condition the male is in, the immunity of the male. And one thing I'm interested in is whether the song complexity and song length predicts paternal care. So do starlings that sing longer and more complex song provide more paternal care? It's not been shown for certainly in this species, so that's something I'm interested in investigating. So European starlings are also known as open-ended learners. So this is where they learn songs throughout their life. And not every bird's able to do this. Not every songbird's able to do this. Some songbirds are limited to 1 to 3 years or a few months, but European starlings can listen and add songs to their repertoire each year. And it's shown in research that females prefer males with larger repertoires. So the more complex the song, the female would prefer that. And if the male sings longer songs, this is also preferred by females. And it's also shown that older males have more complex songs and also sing longer songs. So this is another aspect that I'm really interested in and want to see if this is seen in the Halifax population. Do European starlings in Halifax also increase their song complexity and bout length with age? So this is a photograph of me recording a European starling on English Street. And I put a circle around and if you can see closely, he's doing a little wing waving dance. So sometimes the starlings, when they're singing, they do that as well, especially if they see a female fly by, they would start to wing wave along with singing. So a spectrogram is what I use to look at the structures of the song. So it's a graph where on the x-axis is time. So in this case, it's seconds. And on the y-axis, it's frequency in kilohertz. And you can see the different structures of the songs here. So I look at those and try to determine the unique types of songs they sing. So generally, a European starling song follows 4 sections. It doesn't mean that you'll always hear all 4 sections, but this is the general pattern that they follow. So first, they start with whistle song types. Just as what a whistle would sound like, that's what they start with, and they look like these curved shapes, as you can see here in this graph. Second, they move on to variable song types. So as the name implies, these are a variety of different song sounds incorporated into their song. And sometimes this section incorporates traffic noise. So I've heard them mimicking ambulance sirens, police sirens, and also they mimic other bird species too in this section. This then moves on to the rattle song types. So as the name implies again, they sound like a series of rattles incorporated into the song along with other sounds. So if you look at these vertical lines, they're all clicks. So they click while making other sounds. And of course, they end with high frequency song types. So this is the loudest part of the song, and they sound like high pitched screams. And you can hear this in a distance. So hopefully next time you're out, I hope you can identify these songs. But I thought I would play a song for you just so that you know what it sounds like. And this song that I'll play for you has 4 sections. Yes, so that's a European starling song. And I think the easiest part is to notice the ending where they sound really high pitched and screeching sounds. But next time you're out, I hope if you hear this, you're able to try and spot the starling that's singing. So one of the most important but fun parts of the research is field work. And I thought I would share a little bit about what we do in the field. So our field is located on St. Mary's University campus, and we're really lucky to have it downtown and just be able to observe these starlings in their natural habitat and look at their behavior. So one of the things we do in the field is we also ban these European starlings. And this is really important because we can get long-term data on the birds, and banning is an important technique or part of the research in birds because you can get their migratory patterns, and it also helps directly with conservation because you can observe numbers and see where they are. So we do this with European starlings too, and generally starlings return back to their site where they are breeding, so we're able to follow them every year. So here you can see an individual has two unique color combinations, either so red and yellow in this case, and then we also put a CWS band on them. So that's called a Canadian Wildlife Services band and has a unique number for that individual. And above, we put a yellow or a pink band. In this case, he's a male, so he got a yellow band. So we do the banding as well. We also take their mass, so we weigh them. So we basically put them in a nylon stocking and then attach it to a Pissola spring scale to get their weight. And this is my prof taking the weight of an adult. And we also take tarsus measurements. So this is their leg measurements, and we're measuring a nestling here with a caliper. I love their little dry hairs. It's really cute. And then also we take their wing cord measurements, both the adults and the nestlings, with the wing cord ruler. And we also take a few hackle feathers or throat feathers. So these are just under their, in their throat section, and they are iridescent feathers that actually increase in length, the iridescence and the feather itself as they age. So we collect these to determine their age as well. We also collect information on their incubation and feeding rates. So how long a male and a female incubate the eggs within a certain period of time, the feeding numbers by a male and a female to their nestlings over the period of 1 hour. And we do this generally with observing them from afar in a corner hidden from the nest and with binoculars. But recently we also started to use GoPro cameras, and I thought it was really interesting actually when we just had the GoPro camera and the tripod near the nest. The adults were very defensive and very protective of the nest and wouldn't go in and noticed that there was a foreign object there. So we actually had to dress up the camera with and make it blend in with the environment. So we attached leaves and put tape around so it blended in better, and they were actually more comfortable going in. So they're incredibly protective and incredible parents. So during the breeding season, if you see a starling nest, just take a few minutes to observe the parents feeding the nestlings. They're very dedicated and really interesting birds. So I'm really happy that I was able to share a little bit about European starlings with you. So thank you so much, and I hope you learned something and admire them just as much as I do. And if you have any questions, please ask away, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability.
Great. Thank you so much, Maheshi. They're such interesting little birds. So if you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and stick those into the live chat there, and we'll go through them as best we can. I have a couple questions, so I can get us started off while folks are thinking about theirs. I'm wondering about the ecological importance of starlings in our cities. You know, so many of our Young Naturalist Club trips, when we go out to relatively pristine areas, and we focus a lot of our programming on these like wild species that are maybe declining. But of course, there are tons of starlings, and we don't really think very much, I think, at the Young Naturalist Club about the importance of our cities and the ecological spaces within there. Maybe you could tell us a bit about the roles that starlings play in cities or just the nature of introduced species in general.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Um, so yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like sometimes we often go out to look for birds that are declining in other habitats, but right where we live, there's beautiful birds right around us. So yeah, European starlings. I think one of the main things is birds contribute to insect controlling insect populations too. So I think just having them around the city and keeping those in check in the city. Um, and in terms of being an introduced species, they are introduced, but they've been here for a really long time, so over 100 years now. So I would say that they've almost adapted to the ecosystem here. So uh, in terms of the benefits, I think it's just like really admiring and learning more about what these species and how they've adapted to the city and what makes them able to adapt to the city versus why other birds may have not adapted. So we can really learn from them as well, just to see how we can make more spaces friendlier for other birds to come in as well. But in terms of, I hope I'm answering your question, but I think that's some of the things that I can think of. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, we probably don't spend enough time on urban species and how neat it is that they are adapted to these very human ecosystems. So, yeah, so starlings could teach us a lot about just living in cities. Super cool.
Yeah.
I suppose that's what we would call a naturalized introduced species as opposed to an invasive species. We have talked about those a couple times at the Young Naturalist Club. Neat stuff.
Yes.
Got a couple other questions in our chat here. Sarah is wondering if only the males sing.
That's an excellent question, actually. So no, I both the male and the female sing, but I think during the breeding season, it's the male that sings. But this is actually something that's come up in the avian world itself, that a lot of research has generally been biased towards male song, thinking that male song is what plays an important role. But increasingly, research has been now conducted on female song and what role does that play, and why did song evolve in females too. So to be honest, I've actually seen females sing too, and I've sometimes been confused why they're singing, because a lot of research is mainly done on males. But yes, in the fall, it's been said that both males and females sing. Yeah,
Girl
great
power.
question. Yeah, great question, and something I'm really interested into looking at as well. Why, like, what role does female starling song play?
Well, Karen is wondering what the predators of European starlings here in our cities are, or maybe even outside the city.
That's a really good question. In the city, I would. So, in terms of nestlings, I know for sure when they're about to fledge or when they've fledged, one of the biggest predators, like crows, like to try to get the fledge. If they can get them alone, the fledgling, they would try to predate on the fledglings. But also in terms of like when they're eggs, sometimes squirrels would get into the nests and feed on the eggs. But we've also, unfortunately, during COVID, we also noticed that raccoons were predating on starlings when they were nesting in their nesting sites too. But outside, I think like bigger, larger predators, avian predators could be a threat, but I can't be certain about the exact species or that would predate on them.
Yeah, cool. That's another thing I guess we don't think of very much is urban food chains and what roles are these urban animals might play in those. Neat stuff.
Yeah.
Natalia is wondering, in Europe, starlings are migratory, but do they migrate in Canada?
I'm loving these questions. These are really good questions. So one time, so specifically with the population that we have in Halifax, I can tell you that one of the individuals that we banded were actually recaptured in Newfoundland. So we know that that the population we had, one of them did migrate to Newfoundland, but generally the starling population here, they do overwinter here. So a lot of the individuals in our breeding on St. Mary's campus during the winter time, we find them near the boardwalk where there's a lot more shops where they can find food when there was the stalls going on. So they try to move towards places where they can get more food. But they're here. Mostly they're overwinter here.
Interesting, yeah, because I know that some of our other resident winter birds will sometimes migrate depending on the year, but not very far. And there seems to be some differences in where females and males hang out. Do you know about any differences there in starlings, or is just kind of like where the food is in the city?
I don't know if that changes with male and females, because I've also heard that actually sometimes the breeding pairs, they would stick together sometimes, or sometimes they would get to know what males are healthy, or the conditions of the individuals when they're also roosting together in the winter. So I don't think they separate. So they generally together. Yeah.
Brian is wondering, what bird species or other things have you heard starlings mimicking, and do they mimic machines?
Oh, that's a great question. So actually, they've mimicked a lot of different machinery. I would say yes. Like if there's construction going on and they hear that repeatedly, I can tell you they probably would start to mimic part of that, because I even heard at one point something that sounded like bicycle bells, or even like notification sounds. When we get a notification on our phone, I've heard that kind of sound as well. So they're really good at learning that. And in terms of mimicking other bird species, I know they do, but I apologize. I cannot think of their names right now, but I am more than happy to send you an email with the names once I get them down.
Sure. Are there any benefits to mimicking some sounds over others? Has your research revealed any, evolutionary advantages to certain sounds?
Yeah, so specifically with my research, like I've noticed that they've mimicked, but I haven't looked at the specific role. But I know that research has shown that it could potentially be that they start to mimic so that they can increase their song complexity in certain ways. So it's an addition to their song complexity. And then also some males might mimic less because they're learning song types from other similar, like same other starlings, versus if other starlings are not getting the opportunity to learn from their same species itself, they might just mimic the sounds around them. So it's taking advantage of that. But the specific reasons behind it is, I think, still being investigated, like finding out why they may do that.
Oh, all right. Well, I have one more question before we head into trivia. I'm wondering, because starlings are found throughout North America now, are there regional differences in the songs that they pick up, like other birds will pick up, like accents?
Again, a great question. So that's not, it's actually not been looked at in terms of starlings so far. What we know is that generally they have the same structure, and they have the same average song bout lengths. But in terms of accents, it's not been looked at. So I believe what I can say is I think they generally sound the same but another thing I can add to that is it would depend on what they mimic, depending on what surroundings they are. So if there's certain birds found in certain regions, they would most likely add that to their repertoire, as opposed to here in Halifax, we would hear common birds in Halifax being mimicked. But in terms of that, the accents, I'm not sure if they have dialects.
Okay. Oh, I actually have one more. I lied. Two more questions before trivia. One that I wrote down. I might have missed this one as I was playing with our settings earlier. What's the association between starlings and Shakespeare?
Oh, okay. So starling in Shakespeare plays, there were a number of birds mentioned, and starling was one of them. So the relationship is that there was a group of individuals who were very enthusiastic about Shakespeare and wanted to release the birds in Central Park. Wanted to release these birds in Central Park, and they thought it was a great idea to introduce all the birds mentioned in Shakespeare plays to North America.
Natural history societies have really come a long way since the
No.
1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay. All right, guys. Well, we'll move on to trivia here. So I'm just going to switch our screens. I'll be giving us a couple seconds here just to let some folks catch up. I know that there are lags that can be more extreme in different parts of the province, or if you just have a slower internet connection. So we'll give you a little more time to catch up here so you absorb all of the cool information that Maheshi has shared with us. And then we'll get into trivia. So our pin is up on the screen here. I've also put it at the very beginning of the chat. So if you're playing online through Kahoot, you can go ahead, put that pin in, and we'll get our game going in just a sec here. I see we have one player in already called Radiant Wallaby. Great name. So that's another fun thing you can do in Kahoot is give yourself a cool nature nickname. Just give you guys a second here. Now, as we move over to Kahoot, and of course you don't have to play online, you can just write down your answers on pen and paper. For those of you playing online, you will notice a bit of a difference between the amount of time I've said we have for questions and the amount of time you actually have for questions, and that's because of the lag in our stream. So I've tried to give you as much time as possible. Hopefully nothing freezes on you and you can get your answers in within 30 to 60 seconds is usually the average. But if for whatever reason, you can't get them in time, your lag is too extreme, or you just can't get it open, move over to pen and paper. That's totally fine. Now we do have a prize, a mystery prize for our trivia players today. So if you're playing, all you have to do afterwards is send in your Kahoot name, or you can send in your answers via pen and paper straight to our email, which I'll also put in the chat here, and we'll enter you into a draw for our prize that we will mail out to our winner. All right, we'll just give you a few more seconds there to catch up. All right, got a couple more players in there. I see Melodic Stork, Hero Lark, Joyful Chicken, and Purple Dingo. These are great names. All right, we'll get started. Number 1. What two characteristics are used to identify males versus females during the breeding season? Is it tail feathers and beak color, wing bars and eyes and beak color, or chin and tail feathers? Yeah, so eyes and beak color was a pretty popular answer here. Also had a couple for tail feathers and beak colors. Tricky one, but it is the eyes and beak color. Nice work. All right, let's move on. Nice work, Joyful Chicken, with 557 points. Number 2. What is the typical starling clutch size? Or how many eggs do they have? Is it 1 to 2, 3 to 7, 4 to 5, or 2 to 3? Nice work, guys. Yeah, 3 to 7. You guys were listening. Right, Joyful Chicken still in the lead there. 1,300 points. My goodness. Number 3. How long do the eggs take to incubate? Is it 5 days, 12 days, 10 days, or 15 days? Yeah, nice work, guys. Yeah, 12 days. That is really quick for becoming a parent.
It happens almost overnight.
Man, you gotta be prepared. Have that nest ready. All right. Joyful Chicken still in the lead here. My goodness. Melodic Stork moving up, though. You guys are doing really good. Number 4. What is begging? Is it parent-offspring communication? Parent-parent communication? Communication to deter predators from nests? Or is it asking for cookies? I really want a cookie now. Yeah, parent-offspring communication. Begging for food, for attention. Probably relatable to some of our parents joining us. Hey, can I have a snack?
Can I have a cookie?
Can I have a cookie? Joyful Chicken. Look at these. 3,000 points. Oh. Number 5. True or false? Starling parents continue to feed their fledglings for about 12 days after they leave the nest. Yeah, it's true. About 12 days. That must be longer in starling time, but it doesn't seem very long to me. You have to turn into an adult pretty quick. Joyful Chicken still in the lead there, 3,900 points. Number 6. Starlings continue to learn songs throughout their life and are known as open-ended learners, closed-ended learners, broad-ended learners, or tweet-tweet learners. Yeah, open-ended learners. You guys are really paying attention today. Hero Lark and Purple Dingo moving up the scoreboard. Number 7. How many sections does a starling song generally have? Is it 4, 2, 3, or 6? Yeah, there are 4 sections. Actually, could you remind us of those sections again, or what they're called, or?
Yeah, for sure. So great job, guys. You guys are doing awesome. So the first section is our whistles. So whistles, and then they move on to variable song types. So this is where they have a variety of different song types, mimicry. And then they move on to rattle song types. So sounds like clicks running through along with other sounds. And then, of course, the best part, the high frequency song types, where they sound like high pitched screams.
All right, nice work, guys. Purple Dingo moving up on our scoreboard. Number 8. True or false? Hackle, or throat feathers, are used to determine a starling's age. Is it true or false? Yeah, nice work, guys. That's true. Joyful Chicken still in the lead. Number 9. Who incubates the eggs and feeds the nestlings? Is it the female, the male, both the female and the male, or Shakespeare?
It would be pretty cool if Shakespeare came and contributed.
Yeah, both the female and the male. Maheshi, I feel like at some point somebody in your lab should dress up like Shakespeare when you go do your surveys.
Yeah. maybe I will. Maybe I'll take that off.
All right, Radiant Wallaby moving up a place there. Number 10. Which of the following may be found in starling nests? Greenery or plants, feathers, plastic, or all of the above? Yeah, Yeah, nice job, guys. All of those. Actually, do you know if there's any there are any effects, negative or beneficial, of having a lot of plastic in your nest?
Yeah, so we've often wondered that because it really depends on the individual's nest, and some of them have a large number of plastic, and we wonder if it's like just that they are for kind of keeping them warm, but I don't know if there's like any like feathers would be better for keeping the nest like somewhat warm, but we're not sure because so that's like another interesting aspect because they've adapted well to the city and it's an impact um, it's an effect of living in the city. So we're not sure why they do incorporate the plastic. And this is again something we have been wondering because another interesting fact that I've read is that cigarette butts, like the tobacco is apparently a good has properties that help with deterring parasites or enhancing the health, like keeping the parasites, because there are various insects and parasitic species living in the nest. So we wonder what role that plastic plays a role. So not sure entirely, but it's. I thought it was interesting. Like some of them, you'd be surprised what you find in there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The tobacco aspect is interesting too. I had read about tobacco keeping like pests away.
Yeah,
I assume there's also negative effects to having tobacco in your nest too. So yeah,
yeah.
interesting.
But
Well,
it's also kind of an interesting thing to think about, like in how starlings know what to bring in. Like there's so many variety of greenery around you, but having to choose specific. Do they like in some places they specifically choose what to bring, so they kind of know the properties or have some instinct or behavioral aspect that's related to that. So it's interesting to think about it.
yeah, smart birds. All right. Our bonus question here, number 11. What is the general structure of a starling song? So, is it variable, high frequency, whistles, rattle? Whistles, variable, rattle, high frequency? Whistle while you work, variable laughter and giggles? High frequency, variable, rattle, whistles. This one's tricky, a lot of long words in there.
Some great background music playing.
Oh wow, you guys, everybody playing online got it right. Yeah, whistles, variable, rattle, high frequency. Nice job.
Oh, you guys are awesome.
All right, let's see how we did online. Purple Dingo coming in third with, oh my gosh, 7,500 points. Hero Lark with 7,600. And Joyful Chicken, 8,900. Oh my goodness. You guys all did really well, actually, so amazing. Alright guys, so whether you were playing online or playing from home on pen and paper, if you want to be entered into our draw, just send in either your Kahoot name or your pen and paper answers. You can write them out, that's fine too. I'll be able to track you down. I'm going to put our email right in the chat here so you guys know where to find it. There. And then if you have any more questions about starlings or birds or anything else, you can reach out to myself and to Maheshi and we can get back to you. Maheshi, there was something you were going to answer for us and I can't remember what it was.
Yes, I had a question about what types of species starlings mimic, and it's a great question. I can't think of them off the top of my head because I think I often focus on starlings so much that I'm still learning about other species a lot more. So if I can, I'll try to see if I can find out what types of species they've mimicked and send you some information about it.
Yeah, great. We'll get back to you guys. So if I will have your email, we can get you that way, and we'll also post that answer into our Facebook event on our general YNC Facebook page. So, All right. Well, thanks guys for being here, and thank you, Maheshi, so much for being here and telling us about your awesome research. Maheshi and I are going to disappear here.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed being here and talking to you about starlings.
Yeah, super fun. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next time. Maheshi and I are going to disappear behind our virtual curtain.